I felt bad scheduling this, not realizing it was Giving Tuesday when I said, how about December 2nd?
Oh, it doesn't. I'm not doing anything. I mean, I did it at 5:05 this morning on the radio, but otherwise we've been doing a normal day. We were hoping to get some more donations than we've had, but it's all good. I know people are bombarded with a million emails about Giving Tuesday. So,
and as you get kids in college, they take, not only do the kids take your money, and then the school takes your money, and then the school texts you on Giving Tuesday saying, oh, you should give more money.
I have to say, when my daughter started college and they immediately started sending me fundraising things, I felt like saying, I'm paying for her to be there right now. I really don't think you should be asking me for fundraising donations because, I'm paying her bills.
I want to just take a couple minutes and just really introduce Pete more formally. Pete and I have probably been networking for close to, a dozen years now. Pete and I would get together along with a few others and help each other get past the gatekeeper. So if he was chasing an opportunity he heard about at a company, he'd call me up and say, do you know somebody at that company? And vice versa. So he and I resurrected that in March, and then COVID hit. And then Pete had a really good idea and said, hey, for the next couple of weeks, let's Zoom. Let's have some guests on each week, and let's just share some networking bits, thinking that we get back in front of potential clients in person after a few weeks. And that is now fast forwarded to today, and we've caught on to a concept, and that's really making the city smaller, using the Zoom platform to let our guests tell their story, and make that town and city and world a little bit smaller each day, which you're certainly familiar with all your experience with work and life. It's all relationships, and it's all who you know, and try to cross-pollinate it with others. That's how Pete and I have been helping each other over the years, and then we've taken it to a whole new level now. So we're thrilled to have you with us today.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It is nice to hear a little bit more about you, Pete.
Pleasure to have you. So I can kind of set the stage where I am. Outside my window, I'm recording today from BME in New Hartford. They're having their Stuff the Bus program where they're giving back by giving gifts to the kids, and they stuff a school bus that's all logoed up, and I'm watching as the BME employees parade by the window with their gift that they brought in that they're stuffing the bus with. With that, Steve Mitchell, who is the owner of BME, mentioned a woman by the name of Erin Matt that thought maybe you might know who she is.
I do.
Yeah, and they actually sponsored Volunteers United, BME did, I guess, some time ago. So that was my first introduction to what different businesses do with the United Way, was actually utilizing the platform that we're talking about. Steve was actually a person that came on, told his story, and told all about the charitable organizations that they play a part in. And then it's just so funny how it all comes full circle when I'm sitting here talking to you, and then I was sitting here talking to him earlier, and everybody kind of came full circle and connected, and just want to share that. So thank you for coming on.
So Mike, Megan Sandak talks to folks on Erin's team pretty frequently. They've actually sort of driven halfway and met each other and gotten together a few times.
They're making the city smaller themselves.
Yeah, I love that idea. I mean, I know Mike has probably heard me say I'm not from here, so I think in some ways I'm one of the people who appreciates the region even more.
Where are you from?
Originally Long Island.
Okay. I didn't hear any accent, so it must have been a long time ago.
Well, my parents weren't from there, and so most of us didn't end up sounding like we were. And then my younger, I'm number 5 out of 6, so the younger one stayed there, went to college at Hofstra, and she totally sounds like she's from Long Island. The rest of us do not, and none of us went back after college. So we all decided to make our lives somewhere else.
So fill me in between then and today.
I went to college at the University of Buffalo and loved Buffalo. Bought my first house in the city of Buffalo. And when I was finishing my undergrad, I had 2 degrees, one in psychology and one in anthropology. I didn't know whether I wanted to go to law school or become a social worker. So I thought, well, maybe I'll try to get some work experience before I sort of hop into grad school. And I was fortunate enough to get a position in a progressive law firm that was hiring people with liberal arts degrees and teach them how to do paralegal work, right? So non-lawyers doing work they could bill. Found that I loved the law. And then a couple of years, I guess almost 3 years later, I heard that the Erie County Mental Health Association was hiring advocates to represent folks with mental health challenges in administrative hearings. And you didn't have to be a lawyer to do that. So I thought, oh, well, I could sort of use the law and this notion of being a social worker. So I went to work at the Erie County Mental Health Association and realized that not-for-profit work was really where I wanted to be. Spent a few years there, bought my first house right in the city of Buffalo. And then the person that I had met in college and married was from here. And when we started to think about having a family, we decided, since my family was all over the country and his family was all here, that maybe Central New York made sense in terms of a home. And so we moved here, had our children. We ended up not staying together in the marriage, but Central New York is home. I mean, I can't imagine, honestly, wanting to live anywhere else. Now I'm in a second marriage and happy and blessed and get to work with great people like Mike Durkin. So
not only am I happy that you have a happier relationship, I'm also happy to hear someone say that they are happy to be here in Central New York. I think we need more people who are thinking along those lines. If everyone's thinking about leaving, what do we have to stay for? So thank you.
I did leadership Greater Syracuse literally 20 years ago. One of the things I said was, I think people who aren't from here can appreciate many of the things that you take for granted if you're born here, right? So first of all, I love the fact that when people say traffic, I laugh at them because they don't know what traffic is like living here.
That's right.
Growing up driving the Long Island Expressway, I know a lot more about traffic. But the other thing I think is what I've often said is I think Syracuse is big enough that there's so many wonderful things to do, whether it's music, recreation, the arts in general. And yet we're not so big that people are invisible or anonymous. People still care about each other. You can connect. I mean, I moved here, I didn't know anyone except my in-laws. And I really thought, I want to become known for me. Like, I don't want to just become known as someone who married into that family. And I was just so welcomed. I mean, I just didn't, I made my way into the nonprofit community here. I just always found this to just be a community where people were willing to give me a chance to get to know me. And if you think about the lakes and the mountains and the parks, I mean, it's a gorgeous area.
So Nan, I love that, by the way. I wanted to be known for me. So the me that you are today and the me that you are when you left the craziness of Long Island, or even Buffalo for that matter, how much difference is there between those two me's?
I think, to be honest, much of the core of who I am was who I am since I was very little. So I was number 5 in a family of 6. And my dad was quite outgoing and my mom was very shy. And so my mom used to sort of say, well, I met everyone through you because you'd go visit everyone on the beach because we grew up the hill from Long Island Sound. You'd go visiting everyone at their blankets. You got to know everyone, and then I would come to get you, and then I'd meet people. And I used to be honestly so embarrassed when she told that story. I thought, oh, Mom. But then I realized the reality of it is I love people. Like, I have always just loved meeting people, getting to know them, having real opportunities to share with folks. So that is who I am. And I've been blessed to find ways to use my real love of connecting with people to work that allowed me to connect with others who also wanted to make a difference and connect with people. So I've been really lucky in that way. But I think, honestly, if you talk to people I grew up with, they'd say, oh, yeah, that's who she's always been.
Touched upon something that I've always wanted to kind of ask you, and that's have you always been the giver? Because from my experience with you over the last year or so, you are just constantly supporting and giving. Have you always been like that, even back when you were the fifth of six siblings? Or is that something you've learned just through leadership? I mean, talk to me about that.
That's very nice of you to say, Mike. I guess what I'd say is in our family, because there was such a big age difference, it was sort of like 3 and then 3. So I was like the second middle child.
Middle?
So there was a first middle child, and then I was the second middle child. And I guess in a way, you know, I was kind of the peacemaker. You know, I was always the person who was kind of trying to help people sort of find their way toward one another. I guess that's probably the most natural role for me. And what I will share that I learned, you know, going through a divorce, which was hard. I had a minister in Syracuse who I knew through my work in the community. And he said to me, you know, your strength is that you always want to help other people. Like, that's just who you are. Now you have to say what you need, and you have to let other people help you. And that's going to be really hard for you. And it was really hard for me, but it was a wonderful growth opportunity too, because it really helped me realize that people I cared about wanted to be there for me as well. And it was really wonderful to have them do that. And it was a gift to me. And in some ways, you know, friendships deepened and blossomed because of that two-way connection. And I guess in a way, my willingness to say, wow, I'm feeling pretty bad right now.
Vulnerability is a very powerful thing. If you're able to do that, amazing strength comes from the counsel that can follow that. So I love that you were vulnerable today to tell us that as well. So thank you for sharing that.
I did want to understand the giving and that side of you, but I also wanted to understand the leadership, and I feel like we just got the answer all at once. But I'm guessing that through your career, you've harnessed a leadership style. We all have our own style, and I would love for you to try to describe what you think your leadership style is, and then I'll do part B of that afterwards.
What I value most is people, and my goal in having the privilege of serving in leadership roles, my goal has always been, how do I help people feel like they're a part of a team? How do I help them understand whatever role they're playing a part in the ultimate achieving of a mission? So together we're doing something. How do I help people feel supported and recognized and valued? And also, how do I help people grow? So what are an individual's goals? Where do they see themselves? How do they always think about striving for more? And I do believe that if you support the people on your team and you recognize their skills and learn from them, because most of the people on this team know all kinds of things I don't know. The best thing I've done is bring on brilliant people and then let them do their work, right? So we think as a team, we talk as a team. I want to hear everyone's ideas. And the other thing though, I'm absolutely willing to say, I've heard everybody and here's a decision. Like, I'm also willing to do that. And I think you've got to be willing sometimes to say, I've heard these different points of view. Here's what I think we should do, and here's why. And we're going to do this. And usually, even if people didn't initially have that idea, I think because we have an opportunity to talk and we hash it out, everybody can come to an agreement to support a particular plan, even if it wasn't their favorite choice. So I guess what I'd say is I believe that if you pick the right people, you allow them to grow, you give them the support they need, and you recognize they have a whole life. So that includes caring about their families, making sure that they get the time they need with their families. The rest will come.
I like it.
So I know how much you love your team, so I knew some of the answer. When you're building your team, I don't want to say this. I'm suspecting that you've interviewed enough people over the years that you're like, you know what? This person might not be the perfect fit today, but I'm going to take a gamble on this person. Does somebody come to mind that you took a leap of faith with, who just, and you don't need to say names, but tell us that story if you could, if it's relevant.
Yeah, I do think that I have had the opportunity to. I think I'm a pretty good judge of people. And I do think, I've talked to some folks that I really admire. And I'll give you a couple of examples, but there are so many. One who comes to mind is Jeff Canals. So Jeff shared with me that, when he meets with people, the first thing he's thinking about is this person a culture fit for us? Like, is this person going to fit with our team? And that's one of my key indicators as well. Like, I'm looking at, I can teach someone skills, I can teach them techniques or those kinds of things, but I can't teach someone integrity or ethics or judgment. So for me, it really is about, do I think this is the type of person that will grow with us, that will really be dedicated to our work, will share our belief in people and opportunities and possibilities, and will be open to new ideas? Because someone can have incredible skills, but if they're not the right mix on a team, the chemistry is bad, right? And that just doesn't work. And I have had the wonderful opportunity to interview a few people who I just could tell that it was someone who would work incredibly hard. And one person she ended up I thought she was very smart. She didn't have much experience, but I had a sense that she was someone that would work really hard. She was one of the most talented people I ever had the privilege to hire. It seemed like she had one of those brains. She could do everything. She could do the database stuff. She could be incredibly analytical, but then she could write beautifully. She was an amazing person, very humble. But yeah, she came to mind right away because she was that person. She didn't have a lot of experience, but something told me she was a person I would want to work with.
How often do you pull from what mom and dad told 5 or 6 kids, right? You're 5 of 6, correct? How often do you pull from those lessons in your leadership?
Well, it's funny. I quoted my father today. So my dad died when I was pretty young. So he died in 1977. My mom died in 1987. So it was a long time ago to lose them. One of the things that was amazing about my dad was way before feminism, my dad had 2 girls, then 2 boys, then 2 girls. And there was a big gap between the oldest and the youngest. And he never thought his daughters should achieve any less than his sons, which back then was very unusual. And so I don't think growing up I realized that. But for my 2 oldest sisters to have gotten the encouragement from my parents to go to college. My oldest sister got a PhD from Yale. And that was when not many women even necessarily went to college. So I love, as an adult, recognizing that was a gift that my parents gave us, including my dad. But the other thing that my parents, they were very committed to hard work. So we grew up being told, no matter what the job, that you worked your hardest.
Yeah.
And the other thing my dad said that I thought was really important was, we're all horses pulling carts. So I don't care what your title is. I don't care about any of that. We're all horses pulling carts. And that was the quote I said to one of our staff people this morning, because we were having a conversation and I said, we were talking about our team and I said, well, we're all horses pulling carts, as my dad used to say.
I like that. I might steal that if you don't mind.
I just wrote that down. I like that too.
So when it came time for you, were you in Girl Scouts? Were you in anything where you had to do fundraising as a young girl?
I tried brownies and it wasn't really my bag. I think because we had such a neighborhood full of kids, I always wanted to be outside playing. And mostly I was doing sports. Well, my neighborhood was almost all boys my age. So I played football. I just played whatever we were playing. I was on my bicycle all the time. But I was also involved in music. Music was a huge part of my childhood. And so in high school, I was one of the officers in the band. And every year we got to go to band camp for a week at a college. So we had to raise the money to pay for that. And so I was a fundraiser in terms of I was the treasurer of the band. So I collected all the money for the candy sales. We sold candy.
There you go. That's what I was looking for. I was looking for something that you had to do where you had to go out and interact with people. And the reason I ask is I grew up in a very blue collar family. My mom, she also came from a family of 6 and they didn't have much and they had to, whatever they had to figure out. So we were raised with the idea of if you wanted to raise money for something, you had to get out and do that and talk to people, where other people would take the brochure and put it on the table at work or the break room at work where everyone would just, buy out of guilt or whatever might happen. And I attribute my ability to go out and, build new relationships because my mom made me have to do that. And it sounds like your upbringing was similar, and I respect that.
Yeah, my parents were very involved in volunteer work. And so, it was something that we watched them do. And it was certainly something we were encouraged to do. So,
it was natural.
We had to have jobs. I mean, honestly, starting at the age of 11, I was told I had to be saving for college. So, when you have 6 kids, you need them to help pay for college for sure.
What does Nan Eaton do to clear her head? What do you do when you're not dialed into work?
I love the outdoors, and I especially love taking long walks. So fortunately, Doug shares that same love. So while my husband's much more an adventurer than I am, like he rode his bicycle in the Rocky Mountains, I'd rather walk. I love, connecting with friends. I like to try new recipes to cook. We like to do that. We have a big vegetable garden that we do together, although Doug's really mostly the gardener.
What's your favorite? If you could cook anything today, what's your thing?
Well, I'm trying to sort of grow in terms of trying new things. So I've tried a lot more vegetarian cooking lately. So my new favorite is something I just made for another time on Sunday. We grew a fall crop of flowering broccoli. We discovered a recipe in the Cook's Illustrated magazine. And so it was for farro with broccoli rabe, and it's unbelievably good. It's so filling, you do not miss the meat. So it's got sun-dried tomatoes. It's awesome.
Does your husband help, or is it more of your thing altogether?
My husband is a really good cook. In fact, he's more of an intuitive cook. Like, I like to follow a recipe,
right?
And then I might modify it after I've made it. Doug doesn't even need a recipe. He just sort of has this real creative bent to him. And in fact, his son is a chef in Cleveland.
Oh, nice.
Oh, wow.
And then I like to make a lot of things from scratch, like stews and soups. I have a number of the Moosewood cookbooks.
Oh, yeah.
And so a lot of times I'll take one of their recipes for a stew and I might add some boneless chicken, if I feel like I want to maybe add a little meat. But so those sort of recipes with lots of really interesting spices and herbs, lots of veggies.
You have a $150 gift certificate that someone gave you today for any restaurant in the area to eat. Where are you and Doug going?
Oh, I think we have some amazing restaurants in town. So I would say my toss-up would be, if it was in time, I'd go to Lacey's or Oh My Darling, because I think both of those but there's so many great restaurants. I mean, honestly, I think we're really lucky to have a number of really fun local restaurants in town. I mean, I have to tell you, I'm now addicted to the cinnamon raisin bagels from Water Street Bagels.
Nice.
I love the food at New Century Vietnamese restaurant on the north side. I mean, we have some great restaurants. Rise and Shine probably makes the best veggie omelets I've ever had.
I've never had anything there that was bad.
Yeah, so I mean, honestly, if I want some types of food I want, Kitty Hoynes is my favorite place to go. I mean, we have a lot of great restaurants in Syracuse. Sundays, we used to go to Grimaldi's a lot with friends because Grimaldi's is open on Sundays. Rita does great food out there. So there's a lot of great restaurants.
Yeah, I love it because what I do usually, Nan, is when any business name is called out, I try to show them some love by putting a logo up or some type of photo of them. So this is what this is about, right? Kind of creating some notoriety for other businesses, especially during these times where they're in a very hard situation, trying to stay alive and thrive. So appreciate you throwing all those names out. Thank you.
I'm sure you know about the Eat Local card. Anthony chose United Way as the charity this year. So he every year donates a certain percentage of the proceeds from the Eat Local cards to a charity, and it's United Way this year. So awesome. I had a fun visit with him talking about that. And I honestly didn't really know about those cards till this past year. So it was fun to learn. And now it's such a great gift to give, I think.
I could have swore I saw an email that passed between us that said something about grandchildren.
Oh, yeah. Well, that was the other thing I was about to say. So Doug has 2 grown children. I have 2 grown children. And so Doug's daughter's the oldest, and she has a 3.5-year-old little girl and a 2-year-old little girl. They live in Syracuse. And then my daughter is in the Albany area. She has a little girl who's 2, and she's expecting another in May. And she is a social worker. Doug's son and his wife in Cleveland have a little boy. And as I said, he's a chef. And then my son and his wife live near Reading, Pennsylvania. And my son is a musician and a physical therapy assistant. And my daughter-in-law is a speech therapist. And they have an amazing 2-year-old daughter. So we have literally 4 grandchildren that were born within less than 2 months of each other in the fall of 2018. And 1 who was born first in 2017. So we haven't seen them since March. That's been really hard. But thank God for Zoom and FaceTime. We've been able to do that, but it's fun to watch them, and I can't wait to see them again. Being a parent is amazing, and being a grandparent is sort of a different kind of amazing. And, but if when a 2-year-old says, "I love you, Mimi," which is what they call me, life is great.
My kids used to call my mom Mimi. That's a great grandma name.
Yeah, that's what we called my grandmother. So it was my oldest sister and her grandchildren called her that. And so it just felt like natural for me to use that same thing.
I'm running out of questions, so I'm gonna throw over my last one. What's the vision? Give us some direction on 2021, both personally and professionally, if you would.
So professionally, what I would say is that I'm really proud of the way that we as a United Way team, and I mean the staff, the volunteers, the board, the way we've been a part of our community's response to COVID. And we've continued to do all of our regular work. Plus, we were so proud to partner with the Community Foundation, Alan, Reisman, all the others in the COVID Community Support Fund, coordinating volunteers for the county. It was a privilege to work with our elected officials and the amazing people on their teams. I mean, I will tell you, I met so many people at the county I hadn't known before because we were having daily calls about adult food and getting food to the city school kids. And it's just been an incredible, so, we're seeing the numbers go up. So we know that's going to be a piece of our 2021 is continuing to be a part of our community's response and thinking together about how we come out of this stronger, out of crisis. I really do think is opportunity. So professionally, I do see us playing a role in that, as well as continuing the work we do to think about workforce development, to think about our littlest ones and how do we get all children in our community ready for kindergarten. And what United Way has always done is really thought about how do we help people in poverty, right? And who are not given the same opportunities as others to advance and achieve their own goals. And Mike, as you know, I'm especially proud of our 21-day racial equity habit building challenge work that we also did this year. And I'm excited to say we have some amazing plans for how we're going to continue and grow that work next year. Very excited about that. I think, it's been something that's been a priority for me throughout my career, no matter what I was doing, whether it was low-income housing development, thinking about community building, working with folks who have mental health challenges or disabilities. I always recognized sort of this, the disparities and the inequities that people of color face in every way. So I'm very, very excited about the work we will do in that. And then personally, I really am continuing to sort of challenge myself to try new things, to do new things. I can't wait to see my grandchildren, but I need to think about how to continue to connect with them and do more with them during this time. And then I really want to do more reaching out to people I haven't talked to in a long time. I recently had a conversation with someone I met 20 years ago. We met at a very intense time in our lives, and she and I haven't really talked in a long time, and we had this wonderful conversation, and I thought, I've got to make time to do that, to connect with people who I won't connect with otherwise. I have to be much more intentional in thinking about that and thinking about ways to maybe surprise people with some kindnesses at a time when they need it especially. So
I think the recipient of that phone call, when you make it, is really grateful at this point. And I think that now more than ever, we all do. We all have to figure out a way to, figure that person out and just call them or her and just say, you know what, I haven't checked in with you in a while. I've been thinking about you. And that the person on the other end of that phone is going to be, for the most part, just amazed and feel just so good. And hopefully that person then calls someone else. I know I did that a lot in the beginning of COVID, just checking in on people, and quite frankly, I kind of stopped over the summertime, and I need to ramp that back up with the weather turning and the daylight's getting less, and I just got to put it in my calendar. I got to call Joe on Friday and Sue on Monday, and just make a point to do it.
Yeah, I do. I agree with you, Mike. I think that it's been. I think one of the things that has occurred to me as we've all tried to make our way through this, there's so many different experiences we're all having, and yet in some ways we're having that same large experience. But I think about people on our team and across the community and the country who have young children. So are they in school today? Are they not in school today? How do I do my job? How do I not do my job? And as we know, there are so many people who they don't have the benefit of working remote. That's not the kind of work they do for most people, probably, if you think about it. And how many people aren't even working right now? And who are they? And are we catching them? Are we sort of wrapping our arms around them and saying we're gonna get through this together? We're gonna help you. And I think you're right that there are times when it's people in our personal life. I mean, I do so much of that thinking when I'm at work, but the truth is I need to get on the phone and call the people in my personal life to make sure they're okay too. I think being grateful in advance for what's coming is something I've always tried to do. And so I am grateful in advance because I know that people are working so hard to make these vaccines available and to take care of everyone, and so I'm incredibly grateful to be in a community that has upstate hospital that has played such a leading role, if you think about it. But we're going to have some continued tough times, right, before we make our way to the other side. So I like the idea of each of us thinking about who we can contact and kind of shore up and make sure they're okay too.
So we have a mantra for 21, and it's lemonade in 21. So 20 was the lemons.
You got it.
So you got to make lemonade out of those lemons, right? There's nothing else we can do. Just move forward and keep doing positive things and focusing on people, like you said earlier. And I think good things come from that, as does opportunity. So
yeah, I agree. And it's always taking the time to realize how fortunate you are to be connected to the people. I mean, right now I feel incredibly grateful to have had this conversation with you. I mean, this has been really fun, and it's nice to meet you, Pete.
You as well. A lot of times when we meet a leader, credentials are in place in terms of what their experience has been. But to have a balance of actually a person that you can feel is genuine and giving in their personal life, and is grounded, to also be in charge of people, but then also those people working together to give back to other people. It's nice to see the combination of all those things that you have in your repertoire, so to speak. So we appreciate you.
Thank you. It means a lot to me. It's neat that you're doing this. It really is. It's fun to think about connecting with folks and just sort of having that opportunity to get to know people personally. I don't know if you've heard, I've been listening to Brene Brown's podcast, Unlocking Us.
She's an expert in shame.
Well, and much more, but yeah,
Sure.
She's just done all these amazing interviews. So that's been really fun. I really never did podcasts before.
See, I wish we had started here in the conversation. Brene Brown is someone that I think everyone should listen to on some level. If you deal with any kind of human beings in your life, if you live on an island by yourself, then probably not top 10, but anyone who deals with humans, which most of us do, should spend a few minutes with a lady like that. She is unbelievable. We really appreciate you coming on, really appreciate you telling your story, and appreciate what you're doing. It's awesome.
Well, thank you. And, Mike's playing an active role in what we're doing, which is really awesome. It was great to meet you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take
All right.
care.
All right.
Thanks,
Nan.